Have you ever felt like you need to be louder just to be noticed? In meetings, in business, in life, it can seem like the world only listens to the boldest voice in the room. But what if your quiet nature is not a weakness, but your superpower? In this video, we're exploring Quiet by Susan Cain, a powerful book that shows how introverts can lead, create, and succeed in a world that can't stop talking. Let's dive in. At Poetics of Success, we don't just revisit the lessons from books, we make them resonate with your unique journey. We explore how you can embrace the quiet strength within you, applying those insights to shape your path to true success. Before you start embracing the quiet power within you, make sure to subscribe for more content on how to unlock your true potential and lead with authenticity. Susan Cain is a writer, speaker, and former corporate lawyer who changed the way we think about personality. For a long time, the self-improvement world focused mostly on being bold, social, and outgoing, qualities linked to extroverts. But Susan Cain came in with a different voice. She spoke quietly, but her message was powerful. With her TED Talk and best-selling book, Quiet, she gave introverts a new sense of pride. She helped people understand that being quiet doesn't mean being weak. Her book became a global success, translated into more than 40 languages, and it made millions of readers feel seen, especially those who never felt like they fit into a loud, fast-talking world. Quiet is a non-fiction book that looks at the lives and minds of introverts, people who feel more comfortable in calm, quiet environments. The book begins by explaining how today's society, especially in places like America, often rewards people who are talkative, confident, and social. Susan Cain calls this the extrovert ideal. She explores how schools, workplaces, and even friendships are often built in a way that favors loud voices. Then the book looks into the science behind introversion. It explains how our brains and nervous systems react differently depending on our personalities. Introverts often feel overwhelmed by too much noise or social activity, while extroverts may enjoy and seek out more stimulation. Cain shares stories from researchers, psychologists, and real people to show how this works in everyday life. She also talks about how introverts behave at school and at work. She describes how many talented students and workers are overlooked just because they don't speak up as much. The book includes real examples of quiet leaders, inventors, and creators who did amazing things, not by being loud, but by staying true to who they were. There's also a section about how introverts and extroverts can better understand each other. Cain shares tips and stories about how people can work together, even if they have different styles. She even talks about relationships, parenting, and how to raise quiet children in a busy world. Throughout the book, Cain includes stories from famous people, historical figures, and everyday introverts. She mixes science, personal stories, and interviews to show a wide picture of what introversion really means. Let's start with what Susan Cain calls the extrovert ideal. In her book, she explains that in today's world, especially in Western countries, we tend to admire people who are outgoing, talkative, and full of energy. These are the people who seem confident in meetings, speak up first, and are always ready to share their opinions. We often think that being social and bold means being better or more successful. But it wasn't always like this. Susan Cain shows us that in the 1800s, people admired something different. Back then, having strong values, like honesty, kindness, and good character, was what mattered most. People believed your actions spoke louder than your words. She calls this the culture of character. Over time, that changed, especially in the 20th century. With the rise of advertising and public speaking, people started valuing charm, image, and confidence more than quiet strength. This new way of thinking became the culture of personality. Now, being liked and noticed became more important than being thoughtful or wise. Cain says this shift has made life harder for introverts, people who prefer calm settings and deep thinking over being loud or constantly social. Schools, jobs, and even leadership roles are often built around extroverted behavior. But that doesn't mean introverts can't succeed. And here's why this matters for business owners. If you run a business and you're not the loudest person in the room, you might feel like you're not doing enough. But Susan Cain wants you to know. Your quiet style can actually be a strength. Being thoughtful, planning carefully, and really listening to people are powerful tools. You don't need to be a big talker to be a great leader. Sometimes it's the quiet ones who build the strongest foundations. So, if you've ever felt out of place in a noisy world, just remember, you're not broken. You're just different. And different can be powerful. Susan Cain helps us understand what introversion really is, not as a personality flaw, but as something we're born with. She says that being introverted is not the same as being shy. Shyness is more about fear of judgment. Introversion, on the other hand, is about how your brain and body respond to the world around you. Introverts are more sensitive to stimulation. That means they get tired or overwhelmed more quickly when there's a lot going on, like loud noises, busy crowds, or back-to-back conversations. It's not that they don't like people, it's just that their brains are wired to need quiet and calm more often. Susan Cain shares some fun and surprising science to explain this. For example, in one study, researchers gave lemon juice to babies and measured how much they salivated. Some babies had a strong reaction. They drooled more. Others didn't react much at all. Years later, the babies who reacted strongly were more likely to become introverts. Their nervous systems were simply more sensitive to the world from the very beginning. This shows us that introversion isn't something you choose. It's how you're built. It's natural. Now, think about what this means for business owners. If you're running a business, but you find big networking events, non-stop emails, or noisy meetings exhausting, that's not a weakness. It just means you work better in a different environment. Maybe you do your best thinking alone, or you focus deeply when there are fewer distractions. That's actually a gift. Instead of trying to copy loud, high-energy business styles, you can shape your business to fit who you are. You might find more success when you set boundaries, build quiet time into your day, and work in a way that lets you recharge. Susan Cain is saying, you don't need to change your nature to succeed. You need to understand it. Susan Cain talks emphasizes something that many people don't realize. Being alone can help you be more creative. In fact, some of the best ideas in the world were born in quiet moments, not loud group meetings. She gives the example of Steve Wozniak, the man who co-founded Apple with Steve Jobs. Wozniak built the first personal computer almost entirely on his own, working quietly and obsessively in a garage. He wasn't leading big brainstorming sessions. He wasn't giving flashy speeches. He was just working by himself, thinking deeply and building something world-changing. Susan Cain says this kind of deep, focused work is often only possible in solitude. That's because when you're alone, you're not being interrupted, judged, or pulled in different directions. You can hear your own thoughts clearly. And for introverts, this space is even more important. It's where their best ideas come to life. But today, many schools and companies push group work all the time. Open plan offices, team brainstorming, and constant meetings make it hard to find a moment of peace. Cain warns that when we focus too much on teamwork and group energy, we might be missing out on the quiet genius that happens in solitude. Now, what does this mean if you're a business owner? You might feel pressure to always be networking, attending events, or staying busy around people. But what if your best ideas come when you're alone? That's not a weakness, it's a creative strength. Maybe your next product, service, or strategy won't come from a Zoom call or a busy team session, but from a quiet walk, a journal entry, or an afternoon spent thinking in silence. Don't ignore those moments. As Susan Cain shows, some of the greatest innovation happens when we give ourselves space to think deeply, alone. Susan Cain talks about leadership, and she turns a common belief upside down. Most people think leaders need to be loud, bold, and full of charisma. We imagine someone who's always speaking, always visible, always in control. But Cain shows that this isn't the only way to lead, and it's not always the best way either. She gives the example of Rosa Parks. Parks was a quiet, gentle woman, not the kind of person who shouted or demanded attention. But when she refused to give up her bus seat, she sparked a movement that changed history. Her calm, steady courage made people listen. Cain also talks about business leaders like Warren Buffett, someone who doesn't speak much in public, but is known for being wise, patient, and thoughtful. These leaders don't take up space with noise. They lead with clarity, focus, and strong values. According to Cain, introverted leaders often shine in one important way. They listen. Instead of trying to be the center of attention, they create space for others to share ideas. They often lead teams that are more productive and creative because they don't dominate the conversation. They guide quietly, but powerfully. So, how does this help you as a business owner? If you're not a natural leader in the loud, traditional sense, don't worry. You don't need to become someone you're not. You don't need to talk more or act bigger. Your quiet leadership can inspire trust, loyalty, and deep respect. Maybe you lead by example. Maybe your team feels safe and heard because you listen well. Maybe your business grows not from loud marketing, but from thoughtful strategy and strong personal service. Cain's message is clear. Quiet leadership is still leadership, and often it's exactly what the world needs more of. So, that was Quiet by Susan Cain, a book that doesn't just speak to introverts, but to anyone who's ever felt out of place in a noisy world. It reminds us that strength doesn't always shout. Sometimes it listens, it observes, it thinks deeply, and then it acts, quietly but powerfully. If you're a business owner who leads with calm, who works best in silence, or who's still finding your voice, know this: your quiet nature is not a weakness. It might just be your greatest advantage. Thank you for watching this video here on Poetics of Success, the place where books meet personal growth and ideas are reshaped into tools for change. If you found value in today's video, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear that being quiet is still powerful. And don't forget to check out the other videos on this channel. We've got deep dives into books that can help you build focus, clarity, and momentum. Wishing you wealth, success, and the confidence to lead in your own way. Until next time, stay thoughtful, stay driven, and stay you.